Hello guys, welcome back to the Solvency Masterclass. In this module, we're going over a very important topic called the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. So we'll be going through, deciphering, decoding what it is they're saying in this act, which is really, really revealing, and what's actually hidden in plain sight, which will help give a better understanding as to, this whole paper bureaucracy system and how it's set up with securities, debt notes, promissory notes, bonds, etc. And what I've also put in here too, after purchasing the Black's Law Dictionary, which is quite a meaty little book, 11th edition, really key actually in helping me to decode some of these words in order to gain a better understanding, which I've put some of these useful definitions in here for you, for your benefit, so you can go through in your own time, but we'll cover the key points in this presentation, and which otherwise acts like the Rosetta Stone, deciphering what it is they're trying to say with their key terms. So really, really valuable. And you can actually purchase this online. I think it's like £80. But I put all the necessary kind of relevant definitions for you on here that's pertaining to the Bills of Exchange Act and also the SETI K trusts as well, which is quite interesting, which we'll go through towards the end. So we'll start from the top and we'll work through this systematically again, and really dig in deep and see what they're saying in these acts, which is so very, very revealing. Again, going straight to the source. So one thing that's worth mentioning is all the people, like all the people that go to Eton and all these top nepotism type schools and colleges, they all taught these things. They all taught the Bills of Exchange Act, how it works with the securitization of money and the whole paper realm of bureaucratic fiction that's going on planet Earth at the moment. So they always have a monopoly on this information, this knowledge, whereas the public schools and private schools, for the rest of us, our serfs, aren't taught these things, so they can maintain this monopoly. And knowledge is power, and they realise this. Thanks to this course and all the information online, we can start bringing ourselves up to their level, which is what we're doing, which is what this course is designed to do. So we can start serving them, playing them at their own game, which is quite fun. Once you come into the knowledge, you know exactly what's going on. So going back to, I know I mentioned this in previous modules, but it's good to highlight again. We must first establish, that securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt due to the bankruptcy of our governments to the creditors of the world, which are the IMF, World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, all those families who own these institutions, which are based in the Vatican. And that there is now no money in circulation of any value in which to pay, only debt, and all debt is created on paper, therefore all debt can be discharged and issued on paper. And we'll have a look at some of these definitions in a minute, what paper means, and it's very revealing, this whole system. And so there will be a lot of definitions to learn, which we'll go through in terms of the paper mechanisms. In short, what has happened is governments are now in a state of bankruptcy. It's kind of what we know, but it's good to go over again just to remind ourselves, which as a result are under the complete control of the international financiers who have otherwise taken away our ability to pay with God's money. That's the gold, silver, and copper, or brass, nickel. So they can force the governments to securitize their citizens as collateral through registration at birth for all the debt they owe in their bankruptcy as surety for the continued issuance of debt and repayment thereof through taxes for the interest that comes due on this debt. Bonding every citizen who becomes registered under this bankruptcy is nothing more than a ward of the state, whose life is pledged as collateral for all the debt our insolvent governments find themselves in. We know how they do this as well, with subrogating and getting access to our trusts that are set up in our name under the SETI KV Acts. After 7 years, we're declared dead or lost at sea. So this allows them then to salvage what is rightfully ours and become the beneficiary, and then they subrogate us as trustee to get us to pay for everything. So it is a very lucrative business for these, those international creditors. And a good way to think of it is the Vatican, the Jesuits, and this black nobility is otherwise the head of Medusa. Okay, and you can imagine Medusa, from its head, has many different snakes. So these many different snakes are either the Crown, the United Kingdom, the United States, Washington DC, Australia, New Zealand, Serco, Israel, CIA. All of them emanate from the source, which is the head of Medusa. So it's a good analogy to kind of picture how powerful the Vatican is, and its kind of reach, and how it is the parent corporation, and then all the sister, all the daughter and son corporations underneath them. They just branch out almost infinitely. There's so many different departments, even within the United Kingdom's corporation. Just count the amount of departments that are here. There's so many, and they all serve back and feed back to the head of the snake, the many snakes, Medusa, which is the Vatican. So our governments, they are trustees. This is what they should be in this bankruptcy relationship. However, they subrogate control of our title and trust through the Cestui Que Vie Act, making us trustees, the ones who have to pay for the bankruptcy. It's a neat trick, typical bait and switch. We all know this. We promise you security, benefits, etc. on the surface, but the reality is we're going to commodify you and use you to make millions without you ever knowing, because we think nothing of you as incompetent debt slaves just here to serve your masters, and we need you to borrow more debt and tax for you to pay off the debts that are coming due. So obey, don't ask questions, and follow everyone else. You kind of get the picture. It's exactly what's been going on. So what we'll do is we'll go and cover a few key definitions here to help understand and give you like a little bit more context before diving into the Bills of Exchange Act. So we got here subrogation. This is when the substitution of one party for another whose debt the party pays. And so entitling the paying party to rights, remedies or securities that otherwise would belong to the debtor. For example, a surety who has paid a debt is by subrogation entitled to any security for the debt held by the creditor and the benefit of any judgment the creditor has against the debtor, and may proceed against the debtor as the creditor would. So you have the international financiers, IMF, otherwise have entrapped the whole government under bankruptcy law, who are the trustees that facilitate this bankruptcy. But what they do is get us to carry the burden of the straw man, which is set up under bankruptcy law through commerce, and subrogate that relationship. And so they act out as if they have all the rights as the creditors, which are the international financiers, and get us to be the trustees in this bankruptcy who has to pay their way out of things. So it's all set up really to keep us in this kind of clandestine, bonded, debt servant slavery, basically, servitude. So subrogation simply means substitution of one person for another. That is, one person is allowed to stand in the shoes of another and assert that person's rights against the defendant. This is what happens in court. As soon as you say that you are the name, you automatically subrogate, you become the trustee. The judge and the crown, or the plaintiff bringing forth the charge, the claim, will end up being the executor and beneficiary. Or the judge normally executes, and the beneficiary will be the crown, who gets the payment. And so that's another trick they play in the courts. But this also happens on paper. This is our every right to come in as principal beneficiary, as the settler or executor and beneficiary to our trust, and the government's always the trustee. So I'm going to look at the definition of paper in Black's law. It's quite interesting what it says here. So any written or printed document or instrument. 2, a negotiable document or instrument evidencing a debt. Well, there you go. It's basically telling us that any bit of paper is basically proof of evidencing the debt. Because this is the system we're under. There's no money. It's all debt. So they really have dragged us underwater.